Okay, recording is now in progress. So at this point, all I'm going to do is introduce Ann Pinecroft, who leads our Immigration Task Force, and she's going to introduce Tim.
Hello, welcome Tim, welcome everybody here personally, welcome everybody online. Welcome not only to our first Plymouth folks, but our most precious blood folks.
Calvary.
What's that?
Calvary folks.
Calvary folks. So it's a wonderful crowd here together, and I just heard this is our best crowd this fall
It is.
for adult
It's
ed.
because of you.
No, you know what? It's because of the huge hearts of the people here, the people online, the people at Lutheran Family Services. This is going to be a really brief introduction just to acknowledge the great work that Lutheran Family Services has been doing in the past and is really gearing up over the last couple of months to do now and in the future to welcome our new neighbors from Afghanistan. Tim Zexer is Director of Development at Lutheran Family Services. I hope I got that title right, Tim. And he has been a great friend and partner of the congregation. We have been looking for a few years now for ways for us to get together with Lutheran Family Services on a volunteer hearts and boots on the ground project. And what we're going to do today is hear from Tim about the sorts of help and partnership that LFS would like. And then we'll have some time afterwards, hopefully, to begin to talk about what it is that we collectively here and online feel like we have the heart and mind and bandwidth and energy for. So Tim, thank you for being here with us. Take it away.
Thank you all so much. And can you hear me just fine? Or do I need to turn up or down the volume?
We're good, Tim.
Awesome. Thank you again. It is, it's just a pleasure to be here with all of you. As Ann said, First Plymouth is a congregation that is a cornerstone in the Denver metro area. And we're just so blessed to partner with you. I'll talk about that partnership and in just a little bit, but please know how honored I am to be joining you today. I'm going to share my screen if this works. Let's see. Wow, it seems to be working. Fantastic. Let's see. We'll start from the beginning. And can everyone kind of just see this? The date is incorrect, but you know what? That's when I made it. So happy Halloween. And made this a few days ago. So there you go. Well, so what I'd like to do today is a few things. Just a very, very brief overview of our services. Then I'm going to provide a quick refresher scope of the services that we provide within the refugee and asylee program. Then I'm going to describe the larger situation of what's happening with Afghan resettlement in particular, who is being resettled, where, then give a brief overview of what happens when Afghan families arrive in Colorado. And then finally, we'll lay out some of our most pressing needs and to attempt to answer some of the questions that you have with that. So I know, all of you know that we are still in the midst of the largest evacuation of its kind in the past 46 years. This is a historic event. Regardless of one's politics and ideologies and theologies, we're actually seeing people from up and down the Front Range rally to help support those in need, those Afghan families in need. So I'll be the first to say not many of us are very thrilled about how the last 6 months have gone for our Afghan families. As you'll learn in just a second, Lutheran Family Services Rocky Mountains has been working with that population for nearly 20 years. and we have a lot of ties with the region, but none of us are thrilled about how the last 6 months have gone. But we also have a saying at LFS RM that we don't write policy. We just try to ensure that all of the families that we get to serve find safety, security, and sustainability in our communities. So I know many of you are here today to hear that portion, and that is absolutely going to be the primary focus. But still, I want to do a very, very quick refresher on what all the things that we do. And you can see kind of our 6 program areas right there. We started as an adoption and pregnancy counseling service 73 years ago. We help adoptive families, international and domestic. We do foster to adopt. We're very proud that 89% of our plans result in a successful placement. This is where we began. We also offer, it's not just the adoption portion. We're open and welcoming to women who come in and that just don't know what to do. So this was our primary service 73 years ago. We also do foster care. We're one of the largest agencies in the state. We provided over 53,000 nights of foster care. We had a lot of new families that were licensed in 2020, sadly, because of isolation, kids being isolated from doctors and teachers and other mandatory reporters. We feared that the need for foster care was going to go up. We think that is showing that that's the case. So we've licensed a lot more families. But we've done a lot of foster to adopt. We've even launched a program called STEP, which is Supportive Transition and Emancipation Program, which is really neat. And then the URM is something that only we as an agency do in Colorado, unaccompanied refugee minors. These are refugees who have come to the United States without their parents. Sometimes parents send them away because it's not safe for kids. Sometimes the parents begin the journey with them and don't make it to the end of the journey. But we're able to accept them as refugees. And then if they're under 18, we can serve them as foster care kids. We also do some family support and education. We have a great respite center in Colorado Springs called the KPC Respite Center, where families can bring kids when it's not a safe situation at home, or if it's a single parent just going for a job interview. We do visitation and safe exchange when parents need support exchanging kids because it's not the best situation to have them do that on their own. We teach safe touch in schools up in Weld County on what's appropriate and inappropriate touch. And then when the courts sometimes say parents need continuing education courses to make sure they're good parents before they get kids back, we offer those as well. I just wanted to highlight this because we served 11,000 people through these programs alone in, I think, 2019. And then our older adult services, this is really neat. We've pivoted towards a guardianship model, and guardianship is a hospital will ask us to come in and to be a guardian of someone in the hospital who doesn't have any support. So they might have overstayed their medical need to be in a hospital, yet they don't have anywhere to go. So LFS RM comes in and becomes a guardian for those individuals. And we become their guardian for life. So if they ever go back to the hospital, we can place them in a safe place. So I wanted to give you just the whole scope, and hopefully that didn't take very long, because ultimately we want to talk about what we're doing in our refugee and asylee services. So here's the refresher on that. We operate in 3 different states: Colorado, New Mexico, and in Utah. And Utah is just immigration legal services right now to the refugee and immigrant populations there. But we are resettling families in really Greeley, Denver metro area, Colorado Springs, Albuquerque, Las Cruces, and then we are opening an emergency response office in Santa Fe. New Mexico's been incredible. They are a smaller state population-wise than us, and LFS is going to resettle more Afghan families in New Mexico than in Colorado. Now, I think more will come to Colorado, but we're the only ones who do refugee resettlement in New Mexico on the ground level. And we're the only ones who do it in for Afghan families south of the metro area. There are two other agencies in Denver that have kind of pivoted their model a little bit. African Community Center, by their name, does not necessarily resettle Afghan families, but has pivoted their model a little bit, and IRC has as well. But so those are the places we serve. We serve traditional refugees. Just a reminder, traditional refugees are people who flee their own country because of persecution due to race, religion, nationality, or membership in a particular social or political group. Those last two are a little bit subjective, and the first three are pretty objective. But they usually enter a refugee camp in a second country where they are vetted. They could be there for 3, 5, 10 years. They could spend their whole lives in a refugee camp. A lot of them will spend 10 years in a refugee camp. Before then, they go to a third country. So they leave country one, they go to country two, then to a refugee camp. Then they are placed in country three, and if it's Lutheran Family Services that is working with them, then obviously that's the United States. I wanted to lay that out because you'll see that that's not what's happening with our Afghan families, just out of necessity, that they're not following that traditional path for the most part. But I think it's good to make sure we know what these categories are. So that's a traditional refugee. We also serve asylees, who are people already in the United States for various reasons, but cannot go home for one of the 5 reasons I mentioned above. We do a lot of work with populations such as victims of torture and victims of trafficking, which are categorized a little bit differently on how we serve them. We also provide some great immigration legal services, a big part thanks to the First Plymouth Foundation. This helps us serve other classifications like DACA applicants, unaccompanied children who need representation. It helps us expand from just providing legal services from asylees to sometimes even asylum seekers. We are always just strapped on how we want our resources to be available to everyone, which is just unfortunately not the case. But again, you all and some other groups really stepped up to help us ensure that this year we've been able to expand our immigration legal services, which is just wonderful. So people who need DACA renewal applicants, unaccompanied children, and asylum seekers, so people who have not yet been granted asylum, are all folks that we've kind of been able to extend some services to. And then finally, we have a very long history serving SIVs, which stands for Special Immigration Visa Holders. These are typically people who have worked with the US government, guides for the armed forces, or translators, or embassy workers. And most of our SIVs come from Iraq or Afghanistan for obvious reasons. But this illustrates that we've actually been working with Afghan families for more than a decade. We have a woman on our Colorado Springs staff who was an embassy worker. She works for us now, but was an embassy worker, fled Afghanistan to Pakistan, worked in an embassy there, had to flee Pakistan. So she was really causing trouble, promoting women's rights. So they got her out and has been in Colorado Springs for about 10 years, and recently started working with us. Our program director in New Mexico is from Afghanistan. We have a case aide in Denver from Afghanistan. So we've been working with this population for a long time. In this process, the process of the last, what are we looking at now? 2 or 3 months, 2 months. In this process, there has been one other classification that has been created, and it's called Humanitarian Parolees. I'm going to refer to them as HPs because we don't love the term Humanitarian Parolees. We think our refugees have enough going against them to slap a term like parolee onto their title there. But I think it's important for me to say that because that's kind of how they will be treated. Remember, I said a traditional refugee goes from country A to country B, then is vetted in country B, then is sent to country C, which is the United States. humanitarian parolees in this setting, pretty much country B or country number 2 has been U.S. Army bases, which are not designed to be refugee camps. A lot of them have been in the United States, some of them in Germany, some of them scattered across the Middle East. But the reason that they are classified as humanitarian parolees is they would have spent a lot longer in a refugee camp. But no one wants our military bases to be turned into refugee camps for people to sit there for years while all the vetting takes place. So they have been, instead, they needed to get out of Afghanistan just like everyone else, just like SIVs, but did not have the long history with the United States. So they required a little bit more vetting. This could be the sister of a translator or the cousin of an embassy worker, people who still needed to get out, but had not, U.S. government did not know them as well, so they needed additional vetting. Originally, the differences in SIV classification and HP were enormous. Back in early September, HPs did not qualify for food stamps. They did not qualify for case management past a few weeks. They did not qualify for rent assistance. So agencies like ours became very anxious on how we were going to keep them going until we could get them jobs and a source of income. The good news is in the last several weeks, some policy has changed. HPs now also qualify for case management to be extended for a number of years. And they also qualify for food support, like food stamps. Now, work authorization is still going to take a long time, 6 to 8 months to be approved. And also rent is still a huge, huge issue. So that's why at the end of August, we were contacted by government agencies asking us how many humanitarian parolees do you think we could take as an agency? Because again, we don't want Army bases to be refugee camps. So they're saying, basically, how many people do you think you can reach out to the community and help find rent assistance for and some of the most basic needs? Back then, they were also asking us to provide food and our own case management and all sorts of things. Those things have changed, but we didn't want people staying on military bases, so we're trying to raise money for them to live in the community. So at the end of August, we were contacted. We conservatively back then said about 150 people in Denver, about 100 in Colorado Springs. We've actually bumped both of those numbers up a little bit. It's probably going to be closer to 200 in Denver. In New Mexico, all across New Mexico, about 500. We actually think we'll probably take about 900 total. Actually, we're even hoping that we'll get a little bit higher than that. And I'll tell you why in just a second. But sorry, 1 second. I think I forgot to share. 1 second here. I need to click share sound. There we go. Okay, here's just a quick, just want to show a very quick video that summarizes a number of the things that we've said. Hear the sound, okay?
The airlift of Afghans that took place over the second part or latter part of August was the largest non-military airlift in U.S. history. Well over 100,000 people were evacuated from Afghanistan via the Kabul airport. This is the heaviest lift that the U.S. refugee resettlement infrastructure has been asked to undertake since arguably the 1970s and 80s, when the U.S. admitted large numbers of Southeast Asian refugees. The other thing that I would note about this population is that they are the most recently traumatized population that we will be working with. And so we committed in Denver to 150 individuals and in Colorado Springs to 75 individuals.
So first, before a family even arrives, we secure housing, fill it with furniture so that the family arrives to a home. The day of an arrival, we're at the airport alongside an interpreter to greet and welcome the family with a culturally appropriate hot meal, and if it's cold outside, winter clothes. The next few weeks are pretty crucial. Kids are enrolled in school, adults in English classes, employment coordinators help connect adults to relevant jobs, and then we do other case management things like enrolling in benefits, securing a state ID, a primary care provider.
So our staff has been really busy working to set up apartments, buy groceries, and prepare for these families. Yesterday, our whole office was moving furniture into an apartment for a new family.
Right there.
Move day is the most important time. One of the reasons why is we get to connect with our clients, and the look on their face when they come and actually see their home is the best. So that's why as a staff we have a great time doing this, because we get to connect, and it also gets us to get out of the office and really just really help them get on their way. So yay for Move Day. Wonderful.
Today I'm focusing on volunteer and community engagement, so returning a lot of phone calls from people who are interested to help support refugees.
As we know, this operation is historic, and if we're to respond to it, we need to do so as a community. This includes supporters who contribute to ongoing case management and immediate rent assistance. This includes business partners who help us find appropriate employment connections, and landlords who help us find needed housing. This also includes groups of volunteers who become cultural mentors and welcome Afghan families into their neighborhoods. Over the next several months, donors, volunteers, and community partners will all be crucial in ensuring that our Afghan families find safe, sustainable, and successful new lives here in this country.
This is the opportunity for people to be the face of America's promise, the face of America's promise. And I don't think there's a more powerful way to convey the calling that we have at this time to welcome the stranger, these strangers in particular, to become a part of our community.
So some of the figures that I will share right now, they vary. They varied a little bit week to week, and but I'm going to give you kind of what I have. Some of them are a couple weeks old, but nevertheless, I think they at least set a good frame of reference. The most reliable total that we've heard is anywhere from 70,000 to 100,000 Afghans projected to come to the United States just from the Kabul airlift. There's more that were evacuated, but when we think about 30,000 or so will go to allied countries. Again, those are estimates, but conservatively, at least 70,000 to the United States. Right now, here's the issue here's what we're facing. Right now, agencies like ours have worked with the states and local governments all across the United States. And as of a few weeks ago, we have identified about 37,000 slots, leaving about half of that 70,000 unaccounted for right now. So when we say to Colorado, yep, we can take 900 in Colorado, or we can take 400 or so in Colorado, 500 or so in New Mexico, IRC and ACC both say we'll take a few, we'll take a few hundred. That total across the whole United States is, as of a few weeks ago, was only about 37,000, yet we need to find a place for 70,000 people. So we're not 100% sure, but we are hoping that this means that additional funding or additional rent assistance or additional housing could mean that we can take more Afghan families. In fact, that's the hope of everyone in the agency right now, because there are a lot that we just don't know where they will go. And again, like I said, they are currently, some of them are on army bases, military bases, across the United States, as well as some in Germany and Qatar and other places in the Middle East. As far as the timeline goes, this is always fluctuating, but we are We have seen the first families arrive. The video you just saw actually was from a family who was in the pipeline earlier, as early as the spring, and we got them over here and we resettled them right as some of these pictures that you are seeing were taken. So that family was resettled in late August, but they were in the pipeline much earlier. And so if you kind of beat this infamous rush that was the Kabul airlift, then there's a good chance that you're already resettled. But for a lot of these folks, we're just now seeing them trickle in as we go. We actually have sent, and some of the last ones are returning now. We sent an emergency response team to some local air bases that funnel families directly to us for resettlement. And we have helped provide kind of some immediate case management right there on the air base for them as they go through some of that physical and mental health screening, some of that process. And as their longer term vetting begins, like getting them work authorization. So as a reminder, we're one of the 3 agencies that do this, but we're in Denver, but the only ones in New Mexico. So once families arrive, as you heard on the video, we have homes and apartments waiting for them. We help with groceries. We sign them up for work authorization. That's the most important part. An SIV family, it won't take that long to get work authorization. But for an HP family, like I said, it might take 6 to 8 months. And without income, they're relying on us and the community to help provide that rent assistance and keep them going until work authorization comes in. But then we also deploy teams of cultural mentors, which is really pretty neat. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but this group helps them navigate transit lines and laundromats and understand grocery stores and make sure their kids are in the right classes in school. This group helps them practice English. Ultimately, the number one thing though of cultural mentors is that they are a friendly, welcoming group. And usually cultural mentor team is about 4 to 8 individuals that support one refugee family unit. And then, like I said, we also can provide some legal services as well. I will also, let me just jump in and brag for a second about my job developers and career navigators. I am not one of these people, so I'm allowed to tell you how awesome they are. LFSRM has been one of the best agencies in the entire country consistently over the last decade at getting refugees employed quickly. I could go into how that all works and the funding and how long we have to get them sustainable, but it's taken us on average about 53 days to get a refugee family employed and on their way to sustainability. A lot of these folks don't speak English. A lot of these folks don't, have as many translatable job skills as we would hope. The good thing I will say about Afghanistan is it's a relatively well-educated population that's coming here. English is a little bit more widely spoken than other places like Democratic Republic of Congo or Burma or elsewhere where we resettle folks. But nevertheless, our job developers are awesome. We have some years we've been the fastest agency in the country at finding people jobs. That's because of our staff, but that's also because of the welcoming community up and down the Front Range, and also community partners who help us network our refugees into jobs. So those are immediate needs. Let me also just really quickly mention ongoing needs, because this is also where we thrive. Right now, we are all focused on providing the immediate needs, getting families here and into houses and getting into jobs and getting them sustainable. But then getting them successful is a whole different thing, which I will also say is a strong suit of ours. So the immigration legal services that you all have helped fund is a big piece of that. We do a career navigators course. A story I tell is that, from Afghanistan or Iraq, especially, there are people who come over that are doctors or engineers, a doctor from Afghanistan is not going to pass medical boards in the United States for many, many years, if ever. And so their entry-level job, which we get them, might be working in a grocery store or in a cleaning hotel rooms or whatever that is. But then once they're sustainable, we can then get them at least back into the medical field, similar with other people who have expertise in other fields. So we do some career navigator courses. We do continued education opportunities. A donor recently established an endowed scholarship for refugees who are pursuing higher education opportunities. We are launching economic empowerment programs, especially in New Mexico, but then also we're bringing up microloans and business development initiatives. So, refugees who want to open their own business can get a pretty much interest-free loan. The neat thing is that doesn't take a lot of funding. You could a microloan replenishes itself, and the repayment rates are fantastic. So we do a lot of things to help with ongoing services, not just in the first few months, but for years to come, to make sure families are fully integrated and successful. So from all those services, our biggest need right now is simply supporting the humanitarian parolee families with critical needs, with cultural mentorship, and with funding for rent assistance until their work authorization can come through. And honestly, as soon as it comes through, our job developers right now are lining up opportunities for folks, and our current job market is helping with this, lining up opportunities for folks to get them employed, to get them so they have ownership and equity and get to pay their own rent, and then continue these ongoing services. But our challenge is, how do we fund rent and other critical needs for the next 6 to 8 months until work authorization comes through? Figures can vary greatly. In early September, we were, like I said, very, very anxious because we thought this included food and case management and all sorts of things. And we thought this could be $25,000 per family, which is going to make this a multi-million-dollar fundraising initiative. We're coming to see that for an HP family, of 5 or so, it could actually be closer to about $10,000 per family. Most of that goes to rent assistance. Again, some of that goes to some other things, but that at least was a big relief when we saw that things like food stamps and other things could be covered. So with that, one thing that we're asking communities to consider is a co-sponsorship model that pairs both a cultural mentor team or more cultural mentor teams with the attempt to raise at least $10,000 to support a family. Now, I will say that it's not like a community is writing a check to one family. This actually goes to support the overall rent assistance effort. But nevertheless, it's kind of a good benchmark for a lot of communities to say, hey, could we possibly do that? Raise the money on the financial side and also provide support as volunteers to welcome a family to Denver, to Colorado. Other immediate needs, and then I think I want to save time for questions. How am I doing on time? And I can't really see you, but do I have a couple more minutes, or
about 25 minutes altogether? So yeah, about 10 more minutes for.
Oh, yes. Okay. I could go into a few more things. I was trying to keep this real tight. So some other things, employment connections, as I said, depending on their status and when work authorization might come in more quickly or less quickly, but finding jobs is always the top priority. I don't know if anyone at First Plymouth has read Toxic Charity. Really, really great book. I would highly recommend it to folks. We really subscribe to that model where we provide emergency support for refugee families who come in, but it's absolutely our intention to make sure that they then can become self-sufficient. So we'll talk about that when we talk about housing in a second. But like, I would love to resettle 3 families in Cherry Hills Village. We're not gonna do that because we want them to pay their own rent. So we're willing to help with a few months. In the case of HP families, maybe up to a year, but then the model is that we give them the tools that they need to become self-sufficient. And because of that, we see in refugee resettlement more than any other program that we do, we see negative cycles broken after 1 generation. So the first generation of refugees comes, and maybe they never graduate past certain jobs that they are overqualified for in their own country, but the next generation truly goes to any college in the entire country. We actually a guy works for us now who for a long time was bagging groceries. He became a case aide for us. One of his kids goes to CU. Another kid graduated from MIT. We had 2 kids, one URM and one a traditional refugee in Colorado Springs, who were valedictorians of 2 different high schools in the same year. So the second generation of refugees is really incredible. But part of that is because what we try to do is not support a refugee family for life, but try to get them sustainable as quickly as possible. So employment is a big piece of that. As I alluded to, housing, if you know landlords or who are willing to work with us, we would love to meet them. One thing I'll say to preface all this is we try to avoid cultural islands. Most of our Afghan families will go to Aurora, some the east side of Denver, a lot maybe up in the Thornton area. There's also a pocket in Westminster. I was on a call with a group the other day down in Castle Rock who were amazing. They said, well, can we bring some families down here? And I said, well, one, this is outside of my personal realm, but I kind of doubt it. To at least start, because when you're in a new place, one, our cultural mentors are going to welcome you, and that's great. That could be done anywhere. But 2, we really want them to gravitate towards their own community, people who speak their language, people who eat the same foods and celebrate the same holidays. And we have a lot of those folks on staff, like I said, but it's important that they form their own communities as well. So with housing, we really are looking at longer term housing in Aurora, in Westminster, and Thornton. However, I will also say that we are open to some shorter term housing as well. So especially at reduced cost or free. We're not exploring right now the model of families cohabitating with host families. Now, if it's a guest house, or if it's, maybe if it's a basement apartment that has its own entrance and its own kitchen and everything like that, where families can really be by themselves for a little bit, we could explore that, especially on a 2-week to a couple month long term before we find more permanent housing for them. But again, we want them to be able to pay their rents, and we want them to be able to be a part of their community before too long. So if anyone has any connections on those, I will in the chat here, I can drop the email of our housing coordinator, or you're welcome just to email me and I will forward it to her. Danielle Winters is her name, and she is one of the most overworked people in the entire state of Colorado right now, I'm sure. But nevertheless, she would jump at the opportunity if there was some housing leads. I'll also mention storage space. We've had a lot of amazing donations of furniture to the point where we are pretty full. But if any people have an empty storage space, or just want to underwrite a locker at a U-Haul place, or whatever those are called, we're always open to that. And then the last piece that I will say is what I've already talked about, that cultural mentor teams. I already mentioned what they do. How that works, though, is we have volunteer trainings. We have 2 trainings. One is called Refugee 101, which we ask a team to take. They do a much better job going through all this information than I ever could. And then a second training is to become cultural mentors to say, here's kind of what's appropriate and inappropriate as mentors. Here's some of the biggest challenges that our refugees will face. Of course, you can say the big influx right now is from Afghanistan, but we have refugees that are coming in from other places as well. So most of the folks from Afghanistan have seen snow, but people from the DRC or Burma haven't, and we're getting to be about winter now. So that's a cultural shock. And there are plenty of things that we do a lot differently here in the United States than in any of those other places. And we just help welcome them in that way. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I missed with this process. Maybe we'll find out in the question portion, but really, I just want to say thank you guys. We are happy to think about ways. What I'll say is we want to make sure that if you want to get involved with supporting the Afghan resettlement, we'll get creative with you. Again, there are some limitations on where refugees will go. Oh, the last thing I will say, I remember now, with the housing piece, part of the reason we're not doing the cohabitation is you heard on the video, this is the group, probably the most recently traumatized group that we have worked with. Normally, I'll say, with the exception of some of our special classifications like victims of trafficking and victims of torture, this group has experienced violence and trauma within the last couple of months. Normally, refugees that resettle, not that this is any less significant, but normally refugees that we resettle will be a few years removed from the violence, or fortunately or hopefully they've kind of skirted around it altogether. Now, that's certainly not always the case, but especially the families that were a part of the Kabul airlift likely have experienced some trauma, and that was pretty recent. So because of that, that's really why we're very protective of our families right now, trying not to have them live with other people. We are not letting any of them any of our families at least be interviewed by media outlets. If you ever do want to chat with an Afghan family, we have some on staff. The stories will be about 10 years old, but nevertheless, they're the ones that are offering to be the voice of what's going on. So we're very protective of the folks coming in right now, just because of that recent trauma. So with all that, I just say thank you guys so much. I'd love to answer some questions, and I just really appreciate all those who have put this together, everyone in the community, especially Anne and others who have been so instrumental in helping develop this partnership. Also, if you want to ask any questions about the ways that First Plymouth has been involved, I glossed over that with the Immigration Legal Services, but that's been a really neat partnership, and we really appreciate the funding from the foundation to help provide another attorney on our staff that is able to serve families as well. So with all that, I just want to say thank you so much, and see if there are any questions for now.
All right, let me ask you, what's the best way to handle questions in terms of calling on folks? I'm not sure what Tim can see.
I think, well, maybe all the people maybe in the back row might not be able to yell enough, but we could.
Or I could come up and
we could repeat
the question.
Yeah,
let me get these people back on the screen.
Yep.
Tim, I had a question to start off with, if that's okay with everybody. How many people are on those cultural orientation teams?
Yeah, good question. About 4 to 10 per team. 10's on the high side. I actually don't know. I don't know why they're that size, but that's kind of the choice. My wife and I actually went through the whole orientation. Oh man, our daughter's 5, so I think we went through it when she was 1. It was kind of in response to maybe some Syrian refugees coming over. We went through the whole process. I just kind of mostly wanted to do it to see what it was like. And it's really neat, but I would highly encourage folks to pursue that if that's something that they would like, if that's a way that they would like to get involved. a great way for, like I said, refugee families to practice English. It's a great way for them to ask you questions. It's almost like we're empowering folks to be assistant case managers, because they might say, hey, I don't know how to do, I've had this cold for 2 weeks, and which doctor do I go to? And they say, oh, that's a question you don't need to go to the LFS staff for. We can help you with that. Or, hey, one of my sons is in high school and doing great. The other one, I think they've put him in the wrong class. Oh, okay. Like, I can look at your school schedule. So almost like assistant case managers, advocates, and ultimately just friends. Like, just, I did say that for the most part, across the political spectrum, across the ideological spectrum, theological spectrum, because of the relationship that a lot of these families have had with the government, we think it will be fairly welcoming, but we know that it's not always like that. And there are that, even if we're slightly encouraged right now, how do I put this? There are always folks who don't welcome their new neighbors very well. So that's another piece of this cultural mentorship, is just say, hey, not everyone is like that. In fact, most of us are not, and we're here to be your friends and your supporters and your allies and your advocates throughout all of this. So it's a really neat group, about 4 to 10. That was way too long of an answer for a question that I could say about 4 to 10 people.
Thanks, Tim.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, Beth, go ahead.
I'm signed up on November 11th to go through that volunteer orientation. Sophie said that it was the last one this year. So would it be better for us to think about putting a team together from here, or would we be matched with the mentor cultural team that have also been through the program?
Do you hear that, Tim?
I think I did. So November 11th. What I learned recently is that the great news is there's a lot of demand in, there's a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of demand, but I guess the terminology would be there's also a little bit of supply right now. There's a lot of great folks who are saying we'd be interested in this. I would still say do it, because we kind of do this in 2 ways. Like I said, the Refugee 101 goes over more than what I just went over today. And then the cultural mentor training piece. Even people who take that might say, okay, great, I've now learned about this. I actually just don't really have the time, or they might run out of steam, or they might say, okay, I'm going to try to assemble my own team of 4 to 8 people. And that kind of falls through. So if you guys are interested, do it. I would also say that I don't know, based on if it's going to be a flood or a trickle on when refugees arrive. I promise we're still going to need teams on January 1st. I promise we're still going to need teams on March 1st. So I think even for this Afghan evacuation, but so all of that is to say, yes, if you would like to kind of put together your own team, we should. I know that because there's a lot of people interested, they're not scheduling these too far out, but they will continue to schedule them through December, I'm sure. So even if November 11th is the last one on the calendar, I know that there will be more coming, and hopefully they've already put some of those on the calendar as well. So the answer to your question is yes. I think First Plymouth would be marvelous to just put together their own team or 2 or whatever they want to do. And the need will be there.
Cool. Anyone on Zoom have any questions? You can unmute or put it in the chat if you do. Questions out there?
Kim, I've got a question. I'm with Calvary Presbyterian Church. What kind of a time commitment? Let's say a team of 4 people. What kind of time commitment are they looking at?
Yeah, this has changed recently, and I actually I might be able to find the most updated thing on our website. I thought so. It used to be, I think, 3 months. I think we're actually it's about 6 months. A 6-month commitment. I think, I don't know if they encourage you every other week, or I know it's at least every month, if not more, to kind of be in contact with the family. But I think it lasts for 6 months. They might have even changed this a little bit based on interest to extend it beyond that. But I would keep in mind 6 months, and I would keep in mind, and here is what I'm going to do. 6 months, and I'd keep in mind at least once a month, if not more than that. I'm actually going to drop in the chat right now the link to this site. Any other questions while I get this for Dale?
We have a question about ESL. So what's your question, Tricia?
Is that a part of that team, or is that a separate place to, do you have classrooms where people will be meeting that, or is that something where the mentorship team just shows up? If you have ESL expertise, for example.
I think I heard some of that.
Sorry, Tim. You were nodding so much, I thought you heard it.
Yeah.
Tricia was asking if you guys have classrooms there, how they do ESL, if that's something I forget what they're called, cultural mentor teams do, how you guys tackle ESL, because some of us are ESL teachers.
Yeah, wonderful. We absolutely, this is a good question. And this is kind of one of those, we're piecing it together as it goes. I'll also, because I'm just on a roll answering questions with as many words as possible, I'll back up and say that one of the biggest challenges right now is that we just went from 4 years of the fewest number of refugees to enter the country since the refugee commission was created, I think under Carter, maybe under, I forget, the fewest to the biggest evacuation in 46 years. So a number of these things are kind of like, well, we gotta now piece this back together quickly. We partner with churches. There's a Methodist church that teaches ESL that we've sent people to for free. The Emily Griffith Center, we've partnered with them. We don't teach that. I shouldn't say we don't, but I don't think we teach many out of our own offices. But we absolutely have partnered with other groups, and if they're not free to people, we help with that funding piece. I think, and I'm not part of this strategic planning conversation and meetings. I think that we are very open to people who are offering to teach ESL. The question was about the cultural mentor teams. You do not need to. I assume it would help a lot if you had experience with that, but it's really just practicing. It's really just having conversation, having dinner. If I took the class before COVID, so I'm not actually sure some of the regulations now, but practicing those things, not a formal ESL class within the cultural mentorship program. So we do partner with that with the ESL side. I bet we could use more, but I will say why I preface the question the way I did, or the answer the way I did, is because a lot of our case managers right now are focused on the get people here, get them jobs, and then we're going to kind of patchwork the English and some of the other supportive pieces together as we go. Does that kind of make sense? I'm only smiling because I know how that we have a skeleton refugee resettlement staff coming off the last 4 years who are now just they're all just machines. They're rock stars who I don't know if they sleep right now, but so yes, I'm sure they would use any support they have. It's just about coordinating that support.
Tim, we've heard a lot over the last few weeks about clothing and food drives.
Mm-hmm.
What's the status of the need here in Denver for that now?
Yeah, good question. I think right now we're just doing winter coats. Obviously, that's not something, especially for the ones that left in August from Kabul. I don't think they brought many winter coats, and they're going to need them. I think that's the only clothes that we're accepting. We absolutely are accepting furniture. It's just that it depends if we just resettle a few families, maybe we have storage space. If we're waiting, then maybe we don't. If we got more storage space, we could take more furniture. Whether this is for Afghan families or for other families, we'll be doing this work for years. So we'll be doing, we've done it for decades, and we'll be doing it for decades more. We'd love to work ourselves out of business, but your supplies, furniture, winter coats are always needed. It's just kind of if we have the storage space for them, but usually not other clothes, as is my understanding.
Laura? Yeah. Would you ask him, what is the kind of the average profile family? Are we looking at mom and dad, 3 kids, and grandma, or mom and dad alone, or like what kind of families are we talking?
Can you hear that question?
I could. And oh man, really, really tough question. I heard actually, and it kind of varies per conflict and per country. A few years ago, I heard that the most typical model is not from Afghanistan. The most typical model is a mom and 2 or 3 kids. That presents a lot of challenges to us with employment, because again, we want our refugee families to be sustainable. We're not actually seeing that. I think what I've heard here is a family of 5, and it's usually both parents. One of the families, without sharing names, one family, we actually had 2 families already in the pipeline that came over this summer. I don't know how many kids they each had, but unfortunately, one of the males contracted and died of COVID, and that was pretty tough. His brother was also resettled very close by, and so this man is now, we're trying to build up his employment potential, so that he's now trying to take care of 2 families. So but both of them, when they arrived, I think were kind of a family unit of 5 or 6, and now that's changed. But in my understanding, and this is really just a hunch, is that it's about 5 or 6, and from this conflict, a lot of times it is both parents who are able to come, which is not always the case with every conflict.
Tim, I have an additional question.
Yeah.
This is sort of, just wanted to check to see if this passed the laugh test. It was suggested that we support Highlands Presbyterian Camp, which is on the edge of Rocky Mountain National Park. Uh-huh. And someone suggested, well, these are traumatized individuals. Would it make sense for our support to support some scholarships for families to just attend camp?
Huh.
Now, you were very clear about all the other needs, food, but is that something that, have you ever done that?
Actually, so the answer is yes. The only reason I kind of chuckle, so the question was, does it make sense to help support, do scholarships for families to attend camp? Highlands, I've been there. I grew up in a Lutheran church in Boulder, but it was so small that I went to the Presbyterian one down the street for youth group, and Highlands is a beautiful camp. If right there, I think it almost shares a parking lot with the Longs Peak Trailhead.
Right.
But, anyway, so we do this with actually both our foster care kids and our URMs, who are kind of the mixed status that come as refugees, but we serve them as foster care, but also with our refugee kids, where we try to say, we call it enrichment activities and enrichment funding. So sending kids, oh man, our refugee kids, especially this just fits straight into the stereotype you might be thinking. They love going to soccer camps or joining soccer teams. And so sometimes we try to have enrichment funding to support that. I only chuckle because I don't know if it's on anyone's radar right now with that. Now, I think it's a piece of that ongoing support that absolutely I think would be great. But I don't know if we've had the capacity to kind of put that type of thinking into the services that we're providing down the road. The one thing I will say, what we do, and a lot of our foster kids have gone to camps. Rainbow Trail is a Lutheran one, I think. But I will say that there are no religious components to any of our services. So if a family wants to go to a church camp or wants to do whatever, absolutely, we'll try to find money for that, or they can raise it. But as far as the services that we provide, there aren't any. So I don't know where that would. Well, I think that's probably where the line would be with like a church camp. But yeah.
Well, of course, this wouldn't be a religious experience for them. This would be getting out in the mountains.
Yep. And I think really good question. Really good question. I would love for it I know enrichment is very important across a number of our program areas, but I'm not sure our caseworkers quite have that on their radar yet. But very good. Thanks, Dale.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
I'm just going to ask this one question from the chat and then we'll wrap it up because we're at time. Where do we take winter coats now?
Yes. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. Actually, I'm going to take it from my computer. 1 second. How do I do that? I'll figure it out.
Tim, could you email that and this other link to Anne? Because all of us in person can't do that link.
I'm going to send you a PDF, all the ways you can help with the contact names.
Great.
I will tell you, we've been working with a lot of amazing churches. Yeah, you guys. Anne has done work with Diane Bassett over at Montview. We were over there. It's just been really, really the Episcopal churches. While we have Lutheran in our name, there's no Lutheran elements or any religious elements to our services. It's kind of like Lutheran hospital, I guess. I don't think that when you get a new appendix or you get your appendix removed at Lutheran Hospital, they make you take the sacrament. I haven't been there in a while, but no. So it's been thrilling to see folks from all sorts of eclectic communities coming together. So thank you guys so much. Even representatives on here that are not from First Plymouth. So I will put that in the chat. What we are hearing from some of our community partners is that some of our staff are a little slow to respond right now. So if there's a very pressing need, absolutely come to me with anything, or if you're pursuing the co-sponsorship model or anything like that, any immediate questions, I'm happy to answer those. But the capacity, let's just say our staff is at and over capacity right now. So they absolutely will love and want your support. Please don't take it personally if it takes a little while for them to respond to where do we send winter coats. So
one more quick question, Tim, that's a yes or no answer. Will clean used coats be okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
That's the best answer I've given all.
Yeah, we go. Okay. Well, Tim, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who is online and in the Zoom. Let's give it.
Thank you.
Oh, it's Anne's.
Okay, thank you, Tim. I am very conscious that we are now overtime without much. Tim, you can either hang out or you can back out. Whatever.
Okay, I'll thank you guys so much.
Thank you. I know there are lots of interested folks here. We are way over time for actually having a useful conversation about how to move forward. My sense right now is the best thing we can do right now is if there are thoughts, suggestions, just reactions that people want to share right now, let's do that. And then what we will also do is set up the next conversation to really begin to have a more fruitful approach to how we process this, how we respond to this, what ways can we be organizing and helping. So let me just open it up for a few responses to what we've heard. If anyone has anything online or here. Anything that anyone else is just burning to share with what they've heard, with suggestions, with thinking, with anything else? Yes, Anne.
One thing, I went on the website for Family Lutheran Services, and they have all their trainings listed.
Great.
So I think for at least what I'm thinking about is just to get started, to learn about these cultural, and if that's something, I think there's one on Tuesday, on the 9th. There's one, there's some in December, so.
No, it was the 9th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think if you're curious, that might be the place to go. And there's a number of them listed on the site.
Great. Thanks for everybody. I'm not sure everybody heard that. That's wonderful. Ann Zimmer from Most Precious Blood. She just got on the LFSRM website, and there are trainings there to sign up for, apparently now even through December. So that might be a really good way for anybody who is even possibly interested in a cultural mentorship to jump in.
And you do have to, a woman will respond to you, and Tim is right. Her name's Sophie, and she's very slow to respond. So you do have to go in there and register your name and all of those things for her to send to you whatever you're interested to attend.
And just to make sure, I'm not sure whether folks online are hearing all this very well. Beth Ertz added that it's not an instant process. You do need to wait for staff member Sophie to respond. Sophie is obviously as overwhelmed as everybody else at LFS is, but she will get back to you eventually. Yeah.
And if somebody was talking about maybe getting $10,000 and a team together to support one family, is that something you're going to work on? Or, I mean, if somebody wanted to make a contribution right now.
Right now. Oh, Terry.
Oh my gosh. I think you just heard it.
I feel like when we have our next conversation about what we're going to do, I would like to propose that we do that. So I don't know, Jared, if you want to talk to me in a minute, because we obviously don't have that set up yet. So, but I think that'd be awesome if we could do that.
Okay, so that is great. So this is the beginning of a conversation about whether we, either at First Plymouth or in conjunction with Most Precious Blood and Calvary, can actually get together enough interest and support to create one of the support teams that would both be providing cultural mentorship and a financial commitment of $10,000. I hear Laura Ely saying she's very interested in,
do what you got.
in staffing up that. So there's our answer there. Please, everybody, be really thinking about that before our next meeting, because I think that would be a fantastic way to go. I personally don't have the bandwidth at this point to be heading up that sort of team, but it sounds like we have somebody who does.
No, we're all doing it together.
And let me also emphasize that that is the model we would really love to generate here, is energy and leadership from the bottom up rather than from the top down. So
and I'll say, like, when I was in Tucson at grad school, I was a cultural orientation intern at the IRC. So I like took people on buses and, like, I don't know, showed them how to go to the grocery store, stuff like that. And it was very rewarding. So if you're interested in, like, interacting with people and really helping them acclimate, that will be an awesome thing for you to do. It doesn't sound like you have to spend too much time on buses in like 110-degree heat like I did. So that's even a bonus there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura. Sue.
This is a kind of along that line. And I would like to suggest that there be an educational program for people who aren't on the cultural mentorship team, but for people to know, like, if you if you've come upon someone who's on the bus or in the grocery store or wherever in the communities of which you might be at, that you know what you might do or say or how you might help them. Because people don't, it's always like, you don't know what to say or do. And I think that just the general education, that also would get interest where people, it's safe where they're getting educated, then they might want to take another step.
Yeah, cool. Good idea.
That was a great suggestion from Sue Lee that one of the things that this group undertake along with cultural mentorship is almost a bystander intervention training to train a larger group of folks. If I see somebody who looks like an African refugee or maybe any other kind of refugee, how do I politely and safely step in to help? Great, thank you, Sue. Any other comments, questions, suggestions at this point?
Anne?
Oh, thank you, Jamie.
One thing.
Oh, yeah, please do.
So because we are joined at First Plymouth by advocates and people who've been working on this for so long, I know that Lutheran Family Services is also interested in this. This is a moment of extravagant welcome in our country. And we are used to receiving these kinds of asylum seekers, or refugees of war and violence. We are not so easily interested in welcoming others at the southern border. So let us use this energy and our compassion and our progressive legislative hearts to also continue to champion the work. I mean, they're working on this, all agencies are always working on this, but it is a moment of welcome in our country that we might then, under this veil of what a refugee or an asylum seeker is, the US has also been culpable in creating the same dynamics in all of these other countries, Mexico, El Salvador, where we have created those wars and supported those coups and those takeovers. So just remember that these are moments that we can sort of punch harder, love harder, but we can maybe move the dial in a larger way than just by jumping on, and we should be jumping on this bandwagon, but we should be jumping on all of them. So the bandwagon has been there and is gone. This is a long haul. So thank you to Anne for doing this work every single day, and to Beth, who's working tirelessly with an individual and a family, and probably all of you. I just wanted to say that, I guess, as the pastor as I flee the scene. So thank you so much for all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, I think what we will do, thank you all for your patience. We are way over time. We will send out, we will make sure that we have contact info for everybody online. I think we've signed up everybody in this room. We will send out both to everybody here and to our larger immigration interest group, a when is good meeting announcement to see when we can gather, no way all of us, but at least most of us, or some significant part of us who are interested in joining the next part of the conversation. So thank you all for being part of this. Thank you for your large and eager hearts and hands and feet ready to go.
Thanks, Anne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. You rock.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a way to record all of the?
Chat. I think there might be.
Yeah.
I think there might be. There is a, but when I do this for my JHU count, it's automatic, but I probably.
Maybe we can get Laura over.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop the recording. Oh, maybe, I think I'll stop it anyway. I think because there's no, that's just the audio, so.
Okay, well, maybe what we can do, can we pull out of the chat